Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty big industry news going on when it comes to the PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox Series X games, where one of the most beloved and one of the biggest game studios out there, publishers as well as maker of games, Square Enix, has actually had some pretty big multi-$100 million sales that have gone through the past few hours. With a huge acquisition, even more news coming out, it does kind of seem like this big acquisition rollout from all these really big companies, Sony, Xbox, and everything else, is not slowing down. We have some very intriguing numbers. We have some almost somewhat kind of like sad, I guess, long-term gaming numbers, with a lot of information in it as well. When it comes to these big acquisitions, this does actually affect up a lot of future games and future basically installations of games and everything else tied on in. So a lot of stuff to go talk about, a lot of things to mention, and as well, just I guess kind of good news. I always enjoy having these chances to talk about more of the industry news as well. So a lot of stuff to go talk about as well. If any of you guys are brand new, make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. As well for the brand new PlayStation 5 giveaway. Twitter link down below for the PlayStation 5 giveaway. Twitter and Twitch stream as well, link down below. Webull and Coinbase down below. Amazon links down below. And let's go and dive on into it. So in case you guys have not had a chance to fully see this, we have actually had some pretty big news when it comes to Square Enix. So as of right now, we actually had a huge and massive basically just sell-off of a bunch of different types of Square Enix assets. But as well, this is also leading towards now into the future of the company itself, where a lot of folks are questioning on what's going to happen from there, what's going to happen to the games, what's going to happen to the games in production, Final Fantasy 14, anything out there, and let's go and talk about it. So as of today, we had Square Enix that actually sold Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix Montreal to Embracer Group, including their IPs. The biggest thing is probably for this one is on the IP side. When it comes to these side things, such as like their small groups or like development studios, in theory, you can kind of like, they don't necessarily matter that much. That's like basically if you're buying out a company with 100 employees, they could, in theory, always just end up leaving. They could just go and leave, like the talents, whatever. Obviously, if you keep them a good price point and good contract, they're fine. But a lot of the times you care more about the IP. IP is very, very strong because that kind of gives you the chance to utilize other things, such as, say, you guys can see the Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, and Thief, etc., which would let those games be made into future games. And as well, sometimes depending on the IP, could also factor into movies, could factor into TV shows, can also factor into merchandise. Now, this is more supply focused on the gaming side, but as always, other things to note in future acquisition sides. So as of right now, this is a $300 million deal. And while that itself is pretty big, that's a lot of money. That's more money than I will probably ever see for the rest of my life. But the big thing is that it also kind of goes and shows that there's some willingness from Square Enix to go now celebrate into different types of groups. And that also leads into a lot of stuff such as the Final Fantasy franchise and other huge IPs, as well as also kind of strengthens up a potential buyout. Because obviously, what's a good point? Say like if Square Enix is worth, say, $1 billion, for a lack of better terms, just rough, easy to follow numbers, and then they just liquidate out $300 million worth of IPs and assets, that kind of opens up another, like, say, cheaper $300 million buyout options, which would, in that scenario, would make it worth $700 million. Obviously, it's worth a little bit more money for that. I'm just using like really simple math. So that also kind of bumps up once again the big likelihood of a Square Enix buyout. And a lot of folks are kind of speculating once again still that Sony themselves might be wanting to get to that next stage, or as well Microsoft, although Microsoft still is having issues with their own Acquisition buyout when it comes to antitrust laws and monopoly laws. So we're kind of leaning towards, once again, that Sony might be making a huge potential buyout. So we have a lot of things. As you guys can see over here from the Embracer Group itself, has actually once again entered into an agreement to acquire Eidos, Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix Montreal, amongst other assets too with this. So this is like the official press release, official like proper governmental things that are like, hey, let's go and make this. So we'll actually be finding out even more, I think, more information on this as of these past few days, and like as more stuff kind of comes out from the actual thing. But basically for this one, you guys can see they have entered into an agreement to acquire the development studios, Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, Square Enix Montreal, and a catalog of IPs including Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, Legacy of Kain, and more than 50 back catalog games from Square Enix Holdings Company, or Square Enix Holdings, and in total, the acquisition includes about 1,000 employees across 3 studios in 8 global locations. The total purchasing price amounts to around $300 million on cash and debt-free basis to be paid at full at closing, and Embracer has secured additional long-term debt funding commitment for this and other transactions to the pipeline. The company today reiterates its current operational EBIT forecast for fiscal year 21-2022, fiscal year 22-2023, and 23-24. This transaction is subject to various regulatory and other external approvals and expected to close during the second quarter of their financial year as of, at least in the latest from July or September 2022. Embracer will be holding a webcast presentation for investors, analysts too as well in the near future, which also may have gone through. We'll have to see throughout the day. We are thrilled to welcome these studios into the Embracer Group. We recognize this fantastic IP, world-class creative talent, and track record of excellence that have been demonstrated time and again over the past decades. It's been a great pleasure meeting the leadership teams and discussing future plans and how they can realize their ambitions and become a great part of Embracer. As we have so here, it's the best kept secret in gaming. It was just actually a massive, decentralized collection of entrepreneurs who have been thrilled to become a part of today. It's the perfect fit for our ambitions, make high-quality games with great people, sustainability, and grow our existing franchises to their best versions ever. Embracer allows us to forge new partnerships across all media to maximize our franchise's potential and live up to the dreams too as well. So, very intriguing stuff to go and see with Phil Rogers, Square Enix American Europe CEO. It's also very intriguing to go and see too that they had a chance to go and sell out so much. Some big things to kind of note is that the big IP consists of iconic franchises appreciated by critics and players alike. So 2 original IPs, Tomb Raider and Deus Ex. So Tomb Raider has sold 88 million copies, and while 12 million has also done it for Deus Ex, which is kind of surprising based on the niche side of it. Embracer sees an opportunity to invest in these franchises as well as the additional acquired IPs such as Legacy of Kain, Thief, and other franchises. The acquisition also includes continued sales and operations of the studio's more than 50 backlog catalog games. Very intriguing to kind of go and see all this type of stuff. So, part 2 of this as well is that what's going to be going on in the future. As this one, when it comes to this stuff, after closing their transaction, the US will be Embracer's #1 country by number of game developers, and Canada with #2. They have more than 14,000 employees, 10,000 engaged game developers, and 124 internal studios, as well as over 130 games with more than 30 AAA games. This acquisition will bring additional scale to Embracer's current AAA segment, and Embracer will have one of the largest pipelines of PC console games content across the industry, across all genres as well, which is insane to kind of go and see on top of this. So basically, this is looking huge. It's like one of the biggest buyouts we've seen in a very, very long time. When it comes to this, as I mentioned, it's just a $300 more so partial acquisition, but this also, once again, like kind of the bigger topic of this, seems to have opened up more potential for Square Enix themselves. And once again, I think that kind of goes and ties more into Final Fantasy. A lot of people are curious on Final Fantasy like 16, Final Fantasy 14, the MMO, future Final Fantasies, and as well, Square Enix also has a really big bunch and branch of other IPs such as anime, such as production companies, such as also other various games that are not just Final Fantasy. And it's kind of intriguing because the company itself was partially split open. And that does kind of open up the likelihood a lot of a PlayStation and a Sony buyout, as I've mentioned, mainly because with a lot more of these games kind of coming out, it does to kind of like devalue out the company, but it also kind of somewhat makes it stronger. Besides Tomb Raider, I feel like you should probably keep Deus Ex and Tomb Raider, but if you have a good price point and nothing else in the works, might as well have a chance to go and sell it. There's a lot more like analytical stuff tied on in, but with everyone else kind of talking to some of this stuff, we've just been seeing such crazy numbers. Like with the $88 million mark over here too as well, a rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider as well have also sold 38 million copies, as you guys can kind of see from these types of charts. It's just crazy to go and see on how well this has been going, as well as also how strong of a big IP, because I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Tomb Raider before. It also kind of goes and showing how strong it is. But also kind of shows a bit of weakness too as well when it comes to Square Enix, where it does seem like their big expansion was more so on mobile markets instead of these big AAA Western markets, which is why they were maybe more so willing to go and sell to more of a Western-based company, because if their main big cash cows more so on the mobile division, it does kind of open up a lot more of potential for when it comes to, well, making more money that way. So as you guys know, lot of Asian-based, India, Japan, China, focus more on game and mobile. So maybe they're trying to more so focus on that one. But it's very intriguing to go and see a big company such as Square Enix, as well as you can see my thumbnail over there before. It's a very intriguing thing seeing something from, like, say, a company like Square Enix that is now selling assets, which may be a good thing or a bad thing, as well as also may also be good things for the future of games, because this also might go and incentivize even more people to go and, well, work on the games and make it even better and turn a bigger profit. So kind of give me your thoughts and comments down below as well when it comes to Sony and Xbox. Do you guys think they're going to be trying their best to go bob the rest of Square Enix? This is big or bad news? Leave your comments down below, and I'd love to go and hear it. As well, if any of you guys are brand new, make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. As well, for the brand new PlayStation 5 giveaway, Amazon links down below for the PS5 Digital Console Controller, Twitter and Twitch stream as well, linked down below. Sign up for that Weeble, sign up for that Coinbase, and like I said, give me your thoughts all down below.